they'll tell you about it. Viagra, it's not good for you as a young person. It's not good for you normally. But you still see these boys consuming this thing like
it's
That's
not
an
exactly.
approach, but those that sell it, if you look at the package, if you look at even the very fact that you see it at the hospital, it shapes a perspective. If they stop keeping, if they stop keeping that particular sex enhancement drug in the hospital, and then you have to maybe start seeing it where they keep poison, where they keep damaged things that shouldn't be consumed by human beings. That is changing the perspective.
Yeah, and I think you avoid it.
You would
Yeah,
you would flee from
avoid
it.
it.
That's what I think. No, there's
what about those people that will tell
okay.
you they'll tell you they learn from experience?
Let me. That's the thing. Human beings don't actually experience something. You know, smokers. Once person where they smoke come your house, you don't know because it will tear something. Use do
Filter.
I'm suspecting you. It almost never happens that a smoker will tear the Quran or Bible.
Why don't you?
Yes, it happens, but I say it almost never happens.
True.
Why? The perspective, the narrative around it. So these people would come out and tell us that, please don't drink Coke. Oh. Coke is not good, though. You get, but then they would not, on the label of the Coke, draw the number of cubes of sugar it contains. So I think that if they change the narrative around something, it will enable us to get the clear picture, have the right perspective about it, and then take a decision about it. So that's the same with dealing with our addiction. When you see porn as something that is exciting, but you don't want to do it, you're motivated to change from someone who watches porn to become someone who is free from pornographic, yeah, you're likely going to fail. But when you look at porn and know that this is actually destroying me, destroying my relationship with people, it makes me sexualize everybody that comes around me. If you look at it for that real thing it is and classify it there, you are likely, most likely, going to succeed with staying off from pornography. So my final take, before I take every other person's final take, my final perspective is that perspective is more important than motivation, and that it is perspective that yields motivation. So motivation becomes the after effects of the perspective you have about something. So I am going to start from my left now to take the final take of Kelvin. So in 1 minute, at least try to be audible. In 1 minute, just give us a recap of this whole addiction and motivation thing, what you think.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to start giving me this. Let me just give a recap of what we just talked about. If you're talking about perspective, motivation, and awareness, I'll go with perspective and awareness. Because if you view it from your own perspective as an individual, then you have to be aware of how not to do that addiction. Yes, so it deals with, I go with perspective and what's awareness. Motivation, I don't really see motivation as what does much, and mainly when it comes from someone else, an external body, I don't see it as anything.
Okay.
So I go with what perspective because it has to do with you. Then awareness, you give yourself that awareness, that self-awareness that this is how I'm meant to do this thing. That is how I'm meant to do this thing for you to overcome that addiction. Then motivation, I see it as what secondary because at that point you already does what you've done. Listen, you've given yourself that motivation that you have to be doing this thing this way. You have to do it that. Then you have to be aware. This is how I'm going to do this thing. That's how I'm going to do this thing for you to overcome that addiction. So I don't really see motivation as anything, mainly when it comes from another person aside you. That's it.
Okay. So that is that for Kelvin. So of Lagos, I already know. As much as remain no fight. So give me your final thoughts on this.
Okay, I just want to start by saying that I hope we all agree that perspective has different meaning. Yeah, the way I see something is not the way you see something. You have different meaning and different approach and all of that.
Yeah.
And then when it comes down to addiction, yeah, I believe that they all work hand in hand because my perspective leads to me being self-aware, and then self-awareness leads down to motivation, and then motivation leads down to self-discipline. So for me, it's just everything works hand in hand. It's like a step. Yeah, it's stages of life and all of that.
Okay. So let's hear your final take on this.
Like you was said earlier on, right? Perspective and self-awareness, they work hand in hand, right? And if you're trying to overcome addiction, using someone else's perspective, to want to handle your own addiction,
Yeah.
trust me, when you relapse.
So
So it has to be your own perspective, what you've learned about this addiction. Because like some people now, permit me, pardon, some people do masturbation.
Yeah.
They tend to masturbate, and
fucks you.
masturbation, reduces the self-esteem of the man and also causes erectile dysfunction. So
Mm.
knowing those things alone is now you having this is your own perspective of what you think about this addiction. Now you're now self-aware of that. I have to stop this thing. Then that motivation in which maybe you heard somewhere now comes in to help you become a better person, become a better version of yourself.
You raised something very important. Maybe not towards this end now where we hit something we will never mention since masturbation is something that a lot of people,
A lot of girls,
people do.
boys, this day.
You said that I agree with you that it reduces the self-esteem of a man. Do you think it does the same to a woman? You are a girl.
Well, I don't know because I don't really have an experience with it, yeah. But based on like relatable stories I've heard from people, real life stories and all of that, I would say that it does as much as it does to a man, it does the same to a woman. I mean, the whole humans and all of that, yeah. So if it's in terms of reducing your self-esteem, especially when you cannot fight the addiction, it does reduce self-esteem of a woman.
So you feel less of it. So you think that a woman who masturbates feels less of a woman when she's before a man or something like that.
Well, I don't really know much on that topic because I do not have much experience myself. But then I'm going to say when it comes down to where you cannot control it, it becomes a problem.
I am the man for all seasons. Your finest JC plug. These are my friends and my guests too. Like I said when I was starting, with me on today's show is Soma, the man for the ladies. And the ladies should be careful of this guy. And special guest today, Mimi of Lelele of Lagos. And then the special man in the building, Kelvin, the man who deals with logistics and deals with exchange. Meanwhile, Kelvin is wearing a very fine JC. I am Kelvin's JC plug. I am Kelvin JC plug. I know the life for now. You can already see. So that is it for today. That is it for today's episode, the improved episode, as well as the episode 2 of the Saga is Here podcast. Be sure to join us again, share to your friends, and support. Brands should come and sponsor Saga is Here podcast. Brands should come and sponsor Saga is Here podcast, please. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. My guests, no one tell them.